Yo, what's going on, guys? Back again. We're on the episode 2 of the Powerscaling Perspective podcast. Now,
Whoa!
yeah, yeah.
Let's go.
But,
Episode 2.
yeah, episode 2. So, for those who have not or are not on Noodles' channel, the first episode actually went on his channel. So, if you need to watch that first before you even watch this episode, I recommend going and watching that. That will be in the description. But we're basically going to have this whole thing where we're going to be swamping between each other's channels, where I'm going to be getting the even episodes and Noodles is getting the odd ones. And we're going to be trying to keep this going every week if we can. But
Yep. As many weeks as possible, at least.
So. Yeah. So we got quite a bit to talk about today. And originally we were going to be recording this yesterday, but a lot of stuff happened yesterday. Let's just say that much.
A lot of stuff that we even wanted to include on the podcast. So.
Yeah, because at first because I'll just, instead of like beating around the bush, YouTube boxing. So the KSI card just happened yesterday. And originally I'm like, we should do a podcast where we talk about our predictions first. And then maybe do a one later on the actual, like when they actually happened.
When the fights actually occurred, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously we kind of talked it over. We're like, you know what? Let's wait another day so we can actually talk about it first. Because I think we're going to end up having more to talk about even on the podcast instead of just going over predictions. Because I don't think that's going to talk about as much as we want to.
We might as well have waited. So,
yeah.
You know.
So.
And also, it'd probably come to you guys quicker what we thought about the podcast or what we thought about the fights too. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Surfbone.
Yep. So obviously, we're not going to be talking about the undercard whatsoever because no one really cared about that, about the undercard.
I didn't even know there was an undercard.
Yeah, there was, but obviously we pretty much just glazed over that. Like the only thing that even notably happened on that was like Swarms got like knocked out by a guy called like Ed Matthews within like the first like 20 to 30 seconds in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same guy that boxed Deji, and Deji didn't knock him out.
Okay.
So it kind of speaks to that guy's ability that he was able to one-shot a guy that was able to hold his own with Deji.
Deji's pretty shit too, though.
Yeah.
To be fair, he's all right. I'm not gonna shit on him that bad.
I mean, do you want to talk about Deji a little bit?
He's worse than KSI from what I've seen, and I don't particularly hold a very high opinion of Deji. He swings from the hips a lot, leaves his chin in the air. He did well in like his first fight with Jake Paul. I mean, but it was pretty clear that neither of them were experienced at all. Or, I mean, they looked terrible, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But he did all right in that fight. And, yeah, he gave Floyd Mayweather a black eye, whatever. Floyd carried him. Floyd's old. He doesn't care. He's just doing exhibitions for money. Like, if he wanted to knock him out, he could have. He chose not to.
Did you see how giddy he got? When he
Yeah.
actually confronted Tyson's Fury, and he's like, yeah, I saw your fight with Floyd Mayweather. That was pretty good.
Tyson gave him a compliment. Yeah,
I'm just like, bro, like if Tyson really wanted to be like an ass, he would have been, or just truthful. You're like, you dude, like I'm sorry, but Floyd was toying with you that entire time. I don't know why he decided to take that fight.
Yeah, he's literally was just doing it for money. I think I don't know how much money he would even make off that though, because I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it would get that many views. But yeah, Deji fought Floyd Mayweather. Didn't really do anything impressive there. Didn't really do anything in his Jake Paul fight. I haven't seen his entire career though, so I don't have like a complete opinion on him. But yeah, from what I've seen,
I guess
really
like
that good
while on the topic of Tyson Fury though, one of the things that they mentioned kind of in like some of like the breaks in between some of the fights when Tyson Fury was literally on the mic was like, you know what? You should have Tyson be a part of like influencer boxing along with Francis Ngannou. And I'm just sitting there like, who in the influencer scene would be able to take on these guys that it wouldn't just be an absolute fucking murder?
Dude, I wouldn't put any of them against Francis. It would literally be sanctioned murder.
Like even if you had,
Tyson.
Like even if you had like what was it like half Thor take on freaking Tyson, that would still be an utter murder. Like
yeah, I mean, dude, if you just saw what Francis did to people in the UFC, that's all you need to know what he would do to the people in boxing. I know people are like, "Oh, it's MMA." Not, I mean, Francis swings one time and your head flies off your shoulders. That's just how it works. So,
Yeah.
and he's fast, and there's no one like him athletically in Misfits or any other of the YouTube boxing organizations. So, yeah, I think no, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think
that's really terrible.
I think you weren't there for this when it was originally going on, but they had like an actual promo for Francis versus Tyson, and the whole like narrative was that these guys punch hard, and their whole thing is just that they're like punching shit, and then like the entire like environment just shakes, or they're actually causing like environmental and like structural damage to anything that they punch.
I need to read it.
But
yeah.
Like
that's pretty cool.
Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you just present that narrative and then also be like, you know what, Tyson and Ngannou should get into the influencer boxing scene? It's like, no, let them stay in the pros. No. That's not a good
there's
idea.
a reason these are the big boys. They're the UFC and boxing heavyweight champions, and then there's the small fry, you know, and that's the bottom of the UFC, and then there's YouTuber boxing.
Yeah.
You know, like they're kind of a couple levels below where they would need to be fighting people like that. These people have trained their whole lives. Francis was like born in a sand mine. I mean, that's all I need to say. Like,
yeah.
You just don't want to fight that dude. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Francis is a beast. I'm excited for the fight though that's coming up. The Francis and Tyson.
Yeah, I believe it's coming. Isn't it later this month actually, or is it November?
Later this month, yeah. The actual good boxing fight this month. I mean,
yeah.
It may not be good because basically how the argument goes is that Tyson Fury's an actual boxer and he's like one of the best heavyweight boxers that's ever lived. So
yeah.
Francis is not even really notoriously a good boxer for UFC standards.
Yeah.
And the UFC has worse hands than boxing, of course, because all boxers do is train their hands. So it's just like Tyson has, you know, all the guys that Tyson's fought, like Deontay Wilder, can knock you out in like one punch, and they're very technical, probably more technical than Francis ever could hope to be. So, because I mean, those guys have been training since they were babies. So, yeah, it'll probably just be a Tyson massacre. But I mean, if Francis lands, he's a beast. So he's got some of the craziest knockout power I've ever seen in a fighter. So I could easily see an upset happening if he just does clip him. But
pretty much the only UFC fighter that could potentially do anything to a boxer, like an actual like
and it's just because of the puncher's chance.
Yeah,
literally that's it, the puncher's chance.
Yeah,
but you never know. So a lot of upsets have been happening lately. A lot.
Yeah.
KSI almost upset Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, we'll get into that.
What did you think about that fight, Surfbone?
Oh, I thought we're going to get into that bit because we need to kind of go up the ladder here in terms of the. So the first thing we had, though, I don't know if you were there for it, was the first like tag team match. Mm-hmm. I think you were there for it.
I saw a portion of it. I didn't see all of it.
Okay. I guess we will like.
It looked a little goofy though. Like, is it just any time one of them ran back to the corner to tag the other end, like both
they could just go in? Yeah.
Partners would have to switch. Okay.
Yeah, they basically, if they wanted to if they wanted to go in, they basically to be like allow the guy to actually get into the ring, and then they start boxing, and they keep repeating this pattern essentially for the entire round, and then they keep doing that for 4 rounds.
Yeah. Okay. So
which in principle it works. And seemingly, it was pretty entertaining for a lot of people, and a lot of people thought that was like the best fight on the card, which I don't think is even remotely true.
No, Salt Papi versus Slim was pretty good.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to that, but with the fight that's right before that was Deen the Great versus Walid Sharks, the rematch. Now, I've told you about this fight way before, and I told you that you need to like watch out for these guys because their first fight was really, really entertaining. And then because these guys have super genuine beef, and I actually didn't tell you this beforehand.
Yeah, they hate each other.
Well, not just that they hated each other, but Keemstar actually tried to get got these two in a tag team match, and they were both like partners of each other, and they could barely manage. Right after the match, they immediately started going to hating each other. They almost got into a scrap post match.
That's funny.
Yeah,
they just didn't like each other. They
just absolutely hate each other. They almost couldn't work together.
I wonder if one of them just started talking shit or something. I really don't know.
No, yeah,
that's just weird.
Oh no, they couldn't do interviews together. They couldn't do anything together.
I saw the press conference where they almost got into a fight, like right then. It seems like just anytime they get together, they're just gonna scrap and throw hands.
Yeah. So that's why everybody's like, dude. Not only because like the whole Walid stuff where people thought like he needed to like be given another chance to actually beat Deen the Great, and I even went into this fight thinking that Walid Sharks was actually gonna beat Deen and like prove why he should have won that fight. But then Deen just came out, well, because for like the first round definitely went to Walid, but right after that, Deen just started dominating.
Just took over.
Yeah.
Then won the next like 3 rounds. I think he lost the last round though, but he did win the first the in between rounds, which I guess he outpointed him. But Walid started to come back a little bit in that last round.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I do remember.
I think it was literally just because Deen was gassed though.
Yeah.
He was completely tired. He couldn't raise his arms up anymore. But it just shows that Deen the Great improved more and he did better. So it shows that he trained harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a super entertaining fight too. I mean, they were throwing bombs.
Yeah.
They actually have some pretty decent power for their size. So
yeah, that's why I thought it was going to be
enjoyed watching that one.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting to at least watch that fight because I personally thought it was like the most technical fight in that card, and it was the most like heavily entertaining fight because we barely got into instances where they actually were in the clinch, which we'll definitely go into.
It also had like. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Like we'll get into
so goddamn
we'll
terrible.
get into how the later fights just made clinching like one of the reasons.
It's like the beginning of the main card was better than the end of the main card. The beginning was better. The first fights were better. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. Anyway, the Deen the Great fight had a pretty interesting build up to it too because Walid was winning the first fight. Remember that. He was winning, but then he got dropped by Deen the Great. Deen the Great dropped Walid.
Yep.
But Walid didn't realize that when he got up, he turned his back and walked to the corner. Basically, in boxing, that's a sign of cowardice. So they'll stop the fight. They think you don't want to fight anymore, basically. So Walid he submitted to Deen the Great by turning his back. But it's kind of confusing on whether he meant to do that or not. So it was like Walid was winning. He had already dropped Deen the Great multiple times in the first fight, and then he got caught at the end, or I don't remember what round he got caught in, but he got caught, turned his back, fight was over.
Yeah,
so they had to run the rematch.
Yeah,
third round,
third round. Yeah.
Was it a 4-round fight or was it a 5-round?
I believe it was. I think it was a 5-round fight.
5-round. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, he caught him in the third, but yeah, I mean. It had a pretty interesting lead up because Walid was looking better last time, but it showed that Deen the Great just improved a lot more, and he won the majority of the rounds this time and took it. But an issue that Surfbone outlined to me before the podcast, I'll actually let you talk about this, Surfbone, is that apparently, well, I don't know if we should talk about this right now. The Deen the Great thing, where we don't know if he'll have another opponent unless they just want to run the rematch.
Yeah,
like that.
Well, that's the one of the things. Yeah, I just wanted to say was that I guess we'll kind of get into it later, but I guess this is a question I have, Noodles, because I just remembered this right now. Was post-fight interview, he calls out Ryan Garcia and the Tank. Now, what do you think about, based off of his performance, how he would do against those two?
He's just looking for a payday. Either he's delusional and he doesn't understand how good these boxers are, or dude. Just to put it in perspective, these fighters go 12 rounds.
Yeah.
You're gassed in a 4-round fight against a bum. Like, who's fought no one. So, if you want to go up there and you want to try Tank Davis, I'll just tell you already what'll happen. Tank's going to knock you out pretty quickly, and it's not going to... He'll land... I would even reckon he probably did it in the first round. So, no. These guys need to stay away from actual pro boxers. Well... Maybe not, but
yeah,
the ass pro boxers might help, but
right, like it's like that's like they did with Pineda, where they just brought him in against KSI, had him basically get absolutely destroyed, and then turned him basically into an influencer boxer, like almost like an actual gatekeeper. In a way, like if you lose to Pineda,
that's the kind of guy you hire to take a dive.
Yeah,
that's who Pineda is.
Yeah, and now
he's a pro boxer.
Yeah, now basically Misfits has like turned him into this meme where now everybody likes him for some reason, and like he's just like because he came out to like the freaking Undertaker music and he called out he's like I want to fight you in the next card, and everyone just absolutely loses their shit like that. Like I can't remember who else was fighting on that card when he called out this other influencer. I don't even remember who he called out originally. But basically, they're like, dude, he got the biggest roar from the crowd when they found out that he was going to come out like WWE style and he was calling out somebody to fight.
Oh, dude. Some of the call outs get me so amped up.
Yeah.
having mic skills in general is just like the reason these influencer boxer cards even work is just literally because these people have personalities that people are entertained by and want to see do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's even true for like regular combat sports, like real boxing, like professional boxing, and like UFC, MMA stuff, right? So, like the reason Conor McGregor is so big is not because he's the best fighter, because he's not. Let's be honest. He's only, I mean, he was a champion. Don't get me wrong, but he's by far not the best champion. He's been knocked out by people. He's been submitted by people. So like he got dominated by Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's like the greatest lightweight of all time. Um, but yeah, like the reason he's bigger than Khabib and bigger than all these other stars is because of his personality. So the fact is, if you build enough hype, people are going to come watch you fight. So we'll talk more about that during the co-main event when we cover that. But what was the next fight after Deen the Great? And
now, right after that, was arguably the best fight on the entire card was Salt Papi versus Slim, which I remember we both went into that fight thinking Salt Papi was just gonna wash Slim, and oh my god, did we get proven wrong within the last 2 rounds of that fight.
Salt Papi started off strong. I mean, he was catching him with some shots. He wobbled him in the first round, had him backing up for a lot. He was struggling with the range and the speed of Salt Papi, which is what I'd come to know Salt Papi for, because out of all the influencer boxers, he actually does have some pretty impressive speed. And I'd still like to even see him maybe fight KSI, but he did lose the fight because Slim came back with some nasty hooks inside the clinch, man. I mean, it's so weird that he's so long and lanky, but he fights on the inside.
Yeah. That's like basically how
he's the complete opposite of what he should be doing. But
that's the thing, was that's how like in his previous fights, like what he was infamously known for was that there's this guy called Face Temper who also has like some route.
I remember Temper.
And essentially, like his guy backed out, and Slim then decided to be the next guy coming up, and he had like on a 2 weeks notice, and then he comes in, fights Face Temper, and KOs him on a 2 weeks notice.
Damn.
Like, and this motherfucker had no hype to him whatsoever, but he just randomly came out, and it's like, oh wait, this guy might have some potential for boxing, even though he just started like not too long ago.
That sounds to me he's already got some naturally gifted power, or Temper has a fodder chin.
Yeah. No, I do think,
but no, I actually think he does have power. I think he does.
And that's just what's weird is that even though Slim has like the definite like reach advantage, it's weird that like his whole thing is just like he's a good infighter. Actually,
it's
really perplexing.
It's like when you're usually long and lanky, they'll teach you to use your length, right? They'll teach you to use your reach, and the way they'll tell you to do it is, jab from range, circle on the outside, throw your straight right hand. You want to throw straight punches and use the maximum reach of your arm, right? That's not what Slim does. Slim gets on the inside of you real close and uncomfortable, and he'll throw uppercuts to your face and hooks to your face. And he actually ends up dropping Salt Papi. Was it with a hook or an uppercut? It was one.
I believe either one of those. I would need to rewatch.
It was a hook or uppercut, and he just stunned him. And I mean, Salt Papi got dropped at the canvas bad. I saw some people saying this after the fight, and I understand that people were upset a little bit about the stoppage because they were like, he didn't need to get up. It was clear that he was done. And that's true. Like, you can tell he's really hurt. But sometimes when people look really hurt, they can still get up and fight. And we've seen that time and time again, like the UFC and professional boxing. People that look completely beaten will just come out and do something surprising. So he gave Salt Papi a second chance just to see if he would do anything. He didn't look like he could, and he stopped it. So I think the ref did a pretty good job, even if people did think it was a little late and he took unnecessary damage. Luckily for Salt Papi, this isn't something he's done all the time, right? He hasn't been boxing since he was a child. So the issue with like brain damage and stuff is that you accumulate it over time. And,
Salt Papi actually does have some boxing, so. He has some. He was actually one of the one influencers that he's been boxing with when he was a kid.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So that's why they're saying he has like the boxing. So. Yeah, that's why they're saying like Salt Papi should like be in like the KSI and Jake Paul ranges, because he is like the guy with boxing experience, even when he was a child, kind of like Tommy Fury does.
You know what they should run next for KSI if they don't do the Jake Paul fight?
What?
I'd like to see Slim versus KSI.
Yeah, Slim versus KSI. That would go. I definitely want to see that fight.
I'd want to see it.
Yeah.
You? After seeing this last fight, their last 2 fights,
Yeah.
Slim actually took a lot of punishment. Now I'd worry about his cardio, but hey, he outlasted Salt Poppy because Salt Poppy was beating him up in the first 2 rounds. Then Slim came back in the third, and then Slim hammered him in the fourth and kept him, knocked him out. So
yeah, one of the things that I think Slim kind of like really hammered in on that I think is his biggest strength, then it was kind of proven with his previous fights, is that he adapts to the opponent like during the fight, and he kind of learns about the opponent during the fight, and then once he figures out how you work and what you do, that's when he starts really hammering into you, and that's when he takes the advantage, because Salt Poppy was winning those first few rounds, and then Slim just started dominating the last few.
Yeah, I mean, Salt Poppy was doing good, and Slim landed good shots here or there, but he simply was just getting outworked and outpointed.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, you got to be able to take punishment too, and he took it, and he came back. So
yeah,
good on Slim. He did a really good fight. I actually predicted Salt Poppy to win. I tweeted about it beforehand. My predictions were Salt Poppy by KO. I said, what was my other prediction? I said, Logan Paul will TKO Dillon Danis, and KSI will lose to Tommy Fury by decision. That was my 3 predictions. Yep. So the only prediction I got wrong ended up being, well,
Salt Poppy.
So Salt Poppy didn't win. Yeah.
Yeah, that was mine too. The only one I got wrong was that I thought Walid was going to KO Deen, which ended up being proven wrong heavily. But
yeah,
I guess that kind of leads into one of the most just like embarrassing fights I think I've ever seen, which is Dillon Danis versus Logan Paul. The Spider-Man meme.
This fight was dog shit.
It was absolutely terrible, because I really just wanted dude, because like it's basically like who you hated the most, and it's like because you don't like either of these guys, because watching these guys talk to each other was just like watching the Spider-Man meme in real time, where they're just like, you're the scammer, no, you're the more shittier person, like.
Yeah, it reminds me of how bad the Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley 2 fight was until the knockout. Like, just constant clinches, man.
Yeah.
Just no punches thrown from Dillon. What was Dillon doing?
I don't know. Because, like, I remember what you thought he was doing was that essentially he was going to keep letting Logan hit him until his cardio was starting to, like, go away, and that's when he started throwing punches. Which we thought that's what was happening later on. But no.
He just didn't throw anything, man, which I kept telling people before the fight, like, expect this to be a shit fight, because Logan Paul is not a good boxer. No. Jake Paul's pretty good. Logan Paul is terrible. Actually terrible. It's embarrassing that KSI drew with someone that shit.
Yeah.
I know it was their first or second fight, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It's still like Logan Paul just cannot box. His hands are down by his side, leaving his chin open in the air. He doesn't have good footwork. He doesn't have good head movement. If you just learned a good jab, I mean, you would pepper him all fucking night. He's just not a good boxer, technically. Yeah. That being said, Dillon is even more fucking ass, and it's so much worse. Like, he literally keeps his hands up and then just never throws, and occasionally will throw this underwater slow motion hook at your face. And if you can just slip that, you're good to go, bro. Like, you've beaten Dillon Danis. Like, he landed 8 punches by, like, the 4th round or something like that. I'm like, I feel like I could genuinely land more on Logan Paul than Dillon Danis did, just because of how badly he performed. There was nothing worse that night than watching Dillon Danis stand in front of him, and especially after the months of torment and shit talk that Dillon had been pouring on Logan on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go too far into it, but let's just say he took it very personally for a very long time, and posting pictures every single day without fail, bro. Yeah. But that's what it is, a keyboard warrior, someone that talks tough on Twitter and can't actually fight. But
I think the thing is Dillon mentioned right after that and pretty much confirmed he didn't have a fight camp and he didn't have a freaking coach to work with him.
Yeah.
So it just pretty much explained why Dillon looked absolute dog ass during that entire fight, and why he just barely threw.
That's probably just so he didn't have to pay his coaches. To me, it seems like he's just in it for the money.
Yeah.
Like, he's just coming for a paycheck.
Yeah, he's just coming in for a payday, and then he's gonna be facing lawsuits directly afterwards.
Yeah.
But
I mean, hey, you know, if that's all you're gonna say about Dillon Danis is he came for a payday, it doesn't really defend the fact that he also shot a takedown, got stuffed. He also tried to pull guard on Logan Paul, failed, and then got punched in the head.
Like
He
all of his
even swung
attempts,
at the security guard at the end and missed. Like, I mean, it was just the biggest L you could take.
like all of the
Like,
attempts,
I mean,
all the attempts he tried to like actually get like disqualified, but like also try to see if he can take down Logan in an embarrassing fashion, all just utterly failed.
so someone in my server actually predicted that Logan Paul would win by disqualification.
Oh my god, that I'm like,
did.
man, how did he just precog that like utterly? And it was just something like man, we should have expected that he was gonna go for a disqualification, like that, like right after the fact he was just gonna bum rush Logan and keep going after him because it was only 6 rounds or whatever. Yeah.
Well, dude, like, how many people can say they got dominated by Logan Paul?
I
don't know. Like, it's such an L in just in every way.
You gave Logan Paul his first W, bro. How do you feel?
Oh my gosh, Logan Paul is so ass, but Dillon Danis is even more ass.
And by the way, guys,
and I told people before the fight, do not expect this to be a good fight because 1, Logan Paul can't box, and 2, Dillon Danis is an MMA fighter that does jujitsu. He's a jujitsu fighter. He has ass, like, if you watched his MMA career, you would know he has baby punches. And when he doesn't punch most of the time anyway. And even when he is punching, he's punching you on the ground with baby punches. He doesn't have big boy power. Yeah. And he just looks uncomfortable punching. Like, he doesn't throw right. He needs to get a boxing coach.
Speaking of like awkward punching, have you seen Aiden Ross punch?
Oh no, I haven't seen.
No, if I show you clips, dude, he literally looks like he hurts himself whenever he punches somebody. Like,
here, I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, just look that shit up right now. I remember I was watching, like, it was like Wade Plem and Face Sensei were like watching that, and Face Sensei's like, dude, I cannot watch this. Dude, he looks like he's hurting himself. He's like, dude, do not put this man in a boxing. Fuzi? I think he was fighting Fuzi, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You see it? Yeah.
Dude, all right. Aiden is as soft as he looks, bro. He's pudgy. Like,
yeah, that man has zero talent for anything, and boxing is definitely not one of those fields where he could actually go through. Sneeko does have genuine talent, it feels like, but Aiden has absolute zero.
It would still be funny to see them fight in YouTuber boxing, though.
Sneeko would floor him. It would not be fun to watch. No. Sneeko actually, I don't know if you've seen it, but Sneeko actually sparred Jake Paul.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did. We'll have to definitely watch that after this. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see it. I'll watch it soon.
So, we've talked about one of the other worst cards on the actual main card. It's time to go on to what was possibly the even worse fight on the main card, and it was the very main event, which was KSI versus Tommy Fury.
Man,
and this
fight was even more shit.
It was terrible. It was against what we thought was going to be like actually interesting. Was like, okay, we haven't seen KSI fight someone with volume. And this guy also beat Jake Paul, so if he ends up beating Tommy in a similar fashion, in the way he fought Jake, then he would actually be considered better than Jake Paul. And this whole narrative,
I still don't even agree with that, by the way.
Right.
Because when people say things like that, they don't understand that. For one, styles can completely change a fight.
Right.
So sometimes there'll be this occurrence in combat sports where there'll be a triangle of people beating each other. So you'll have person 1 beats person 2, person 2 beats person 3, but then person 3 beats person 1. So it just depends on how the fight goes, and also how they looked in camp could have changed everything. Like if they didn't have a good training camp, or if they were lazy during training camp, if they got injured in training camp, any of those things can play a fight. You can simply just have a bad night on that night. You know what I mean? You could just not be getting off. A lot of fighters have talked about that sensation where they're like, I just couldn't feel like I could get going tonight, man, which, you know, maybe an excuse, but at the same time, I could easily see someone having some kind of like mental or physical fog where they're just not feeling like they're performing to the best of their ability. I could see that happening. So, you know, like even if it was the case that KSI did beat Tommy this fight, it still doesn't prove he's better than Jake Paul. especially considering how shit his performance was, because it was ass. I mean, he barely threw anything, and what he did throw was the same punch repeatedly. He's like a Mortal Kombat character that figured out how to spam. Like, he just spams the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I think Bradley Martin said that on Twitter, that KSI's form and the way that he performed in that fight was similar to how he thinks like a character, like someone just found out how to spam the fucking grab in Mortal Kombat and just kept using it over and over again throughout the fight.
Yeah. He would just bounce, and then he'd blitz in, throw his right hand every time. And it did connect a few times, but it rarely connected.
Yeah.
And like the times it did connect, it really didn't have that big of an effect. Like people were hyping up that, was it the first or second round where he landed that big right hand?
It was the first round.
It was the first round? Yeah, it was like a big punch. Like it was good that he landed it, but it didn't stumble Tommy at all. Tommy immediately rolled his head back and was immediately counterattacking again. Didn't look hurt at all. So the people that were saying he was rocked on Twitter, you are wrong.
It was so funny.
Looks like.
It was so funny because essentially KSI's biggest talking point and why he think he'd be able to take down Tommy is that he's like, dude, the moment Tommy gets hit by one of my like really good punches, he's going to realize why I'm the dog, why I am one of the top guys in the influencer boxing scene. And then he didn't knock down Tommy one time as compared to Jake Paul.
Didn't even hurt him one time. Didn't rock him. If you guys want to see what rocked looks like, what's a good example of this? Trying to think of like a good one where someone was just completely on Bambi legs. Right. I guess when Yoel Romero rocked Robert Whittaker, that dude got sit on Queer Street immediately. He was completely gone. He couldn't handle his legs out from under him. He couldn't stay balanced, anything like that. That's when you know someone's rocked. If their eyes are rolling back in their head, if they're not able to keep their balance, if they're stumbling, if they're covering up, none of that happened with Tommy. So how's he rocked? Right. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that first round, I don't even really think KSI did that well. Like, it was probably his best round, but even then it was just because he had cardio that first round and he could actually throw full speed. So, you know, KSI is explosive. I'll give him that. He's got some explosiveness to him. But the hands down style doesn't work. The attacking in the same linear approach every time doesn't work. Good boxers change angles. Good boxers attack to the body too. He was almost exclusively going to Tommy's head. The times he did attack the body did sound good, actually. Like, I mean, they landed pretty good. But yeah, I don't think KSI had a good performance, and the constant clinching from KSI was horrid. It made the fight almost unwatchable, bro.
Yeah, like, the thing is that KSI is known as a guy that wants to bring entertainment to the people, and that he wants to make sure that his cards are entertaining. And it's like, the rest of the card was. Your fight wasn't. Yeah. And your fights continue to be the most boring part of each and every card. Like, no one cared about the Joe Fournier fight. No one cared about his fight with Face Temper. No one cared about his previous fight with Pineda and Swarms. And
you remember when he knocked out Joe Fournier with that elbow?
Yeah, the elbow.
Was pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Like, yeah, I like that. He was teaching him MMA. He was learning MMA right there. Fuck boxing. Let's do MMA. YouTuber MMA. I'd like to see that.
And now, and so we're not always on like the hate like KSI wave. Tommy also looked really bad during that fight.
The fact that it was close is enough to know that Tommy is a shit professional boxer. Yeah. That's all you need to know. Like, he's not good. He doesn't live up to his Fury name even whatsoever, which, I mean, the only one in the Fury family that's good anyway is Tyson Fury, but still, he doesn't live up to Tyson Fury at all. That
man has world champion aspirations, and he's fighting YouTube boxers. And he's being close to them, relative to them. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, but he got a split decision against Jake Paul, and then he got a majority decision against KSI, which you told me before the podcast. They actually overturned it to unanimous.
Yeah, now it's a unanimous decision, in case nobody found out. The guy that originally said that it was a tie had recently changed it to now it's full-on unanimous decision that Tommy Fury won that fight, even with the point deduction.
Yeah. Is that official, too? Like, it's actually like officially unanimous?
Yeah. I'll have to send that tweet to you, but yeah.
But the fact that a lot of people thought KSI won just shows that Tommy Fury is just I mean, he's not that much better than either of them, either Jake Paul or KSI. Because the fact is, if Tommy was a lot better, he would have knocked them both out. But he didn't even stumble either of them. Like the fact that KSI was acting like he was going to knock out Tommy. He didn't rock him one time. He didn't drop him one time. The same. Tommy Fury was saying he was going to knock out KSI. He didn't rock him one time. He didn't drop him one time. In fact, he barely threw any combinations. He actually looked worse this fight than he did the Jake Paul fight. I think Tommy actually looked a lot sharper during the Jake Paul fight.
Yeah.
And you actually had an idea for why that was the case, right?
Yeah. Well, it was essentially based off of one of our other buddies that basically said that Tommy Fury only looks as good as the people that he trains to fight, and that's why he looks so terrible against KSI, because KSI is terrible. So he ended up looking terrible as well. As opposed with Jake Paul, he actually looked good in that fight.
Yeah. And Jake Paul also dropped Tommy Fury as well. So I still think that Jake Paul performed better. Like, I think it's kind of hard to argue against. Like, I know Jake Paul was clinching a lot too, but KSI actually could not stop clinching. And also, Jake Paul just went 8 rounds with Tommy Fury. KSI only went 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I also think Tommy probably won the last 4 rounds. I didn't really give any of those rounds to KSI. I know some people thought he won the 5th. Some people thought he won the 6th. I went back and rewatched the fight, and I just don't think you can give him any of the last 4, and it's arguable that he even won the 2nd. Like, it's actually arguable. So, now I know he did get a point deduction, but this, oh my gosh, the point deduction made everyone on Twitter, and it's mostly just KSI's hive mind fan base that does this. But they basically just don't understand how to score a boxing fight. And that makes sense because they're not from the boxing community. They're not from the UFC community. The UFC uses the same scoring system as boxing. And I watch a shit ton of boxing and UFC, so I know the scoring system. It's called the 10-point must system. Basically, how it works is if you win a round, you get 10 points. The person that loses the round only gets 9 points. And they do that for however many rounds are going. You add up all the points at the end. Whoever has the most points wins. Now, there is such thing as a 10-8 as well. So, like, if you drop someone in a fight, they'll give you a 10-8. They'll give you a 10-8 for that round. So, if you drop someone, that's a 10-8. So, you actually get 2 points over that person. Now, there's also point deductions, which is actually what happened in this fight. And KSI kept getting hit in the back of the head by Tommy Fury. And I will admit, Tommy Fury was being dirty as hell. I mean, he was hitting him in the back of the head repeatedly. I even saw him elbow him right in the chin inside the clinch. The ref could have took another point because he was doing that much bad shit. So, I mean, that played a lot on people's minds too, and I think it affected how people, and the commentary bias too. A lot of people thought KSI won literally because of the point deduction and the commentary bias. The commentators are almost always going to be leaning towards one person subconsciously. There's some really good commentators out there that try not to do that and are pretty fair. Like, I think John Anik from the UFC is an amazing one. But people like Ariel Helwani, and I don't even know who else commentated this fight.
Oh, you want to know?
Job.
You want to know who else was commentating during that? Mams Taylor, who's one of his managers and one of the guys that runs Misfits.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the commentators that was commentating the fight. Damn. Bro. So obviously he's gonna be on KSI's fucking side the whole time.
Yeah, and just knowing how corrupt the boxing community or the boxing higher ups are, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing got overturned. Just because, of course, the boxing commissions want KSI to win. Maybe not the commission, but whoever's maybe Mams Taylor and all them, right? Yeah, the people that would want KSI to win or Fury to win, I mean, they're just so corrupt. I could see something happening with just KSI's hive mind. Like, they were protesting outside of the boxing commission building or whatever. They had a massive gathering of people in the UK, and I think it was in Manchester. I think it was hosted by Keemstar too. Keemstar was leading them, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was something overturned, but I hope that's not the case, because even with the point deduction, I still think Tommy won.
Speaking of Keemstar, so he was the first one saying on Twitter, he's like, bro, when we are right that KSI is going to be the one that knocks out Tommy Fury, everyone's going to be coping at the end. And then he just gets pissed off that they're like, oh, it was a robbery. KSI should have won. That was a robbery. So he's now the one coping. And then also, weird thing, I don't know why he's doing this. This one made the least sense. He was actually trying to say that because one of Logan Paul's freaking security guards tried to get into the boxing ring during the fight, but that should mean that Logan Paul should get disqualified and not Dillon.
I actually saw Chael Sonnen reciprocate that too. So I don't know about boxing rules, how that works, but as far as my eyes, I mean, Dillon was clearly fouling him multiple times, trying to pull guard, shoot takedowns in a boxing fight, so he deserved whatever he got.
Yeah.
Whether that was the security guard that he missed, bro, and he missed bad. Like, that security guard made him miss. So it's just so funny that, like, Dillon Paul, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a merge destruction.
Oh, no.
Dillon Paul. Dillon Danis. Yeah, I know. That's so funny. God damn it. Dillon Danis, he's taken 2 L's to security guards. He got choked out by one in a bar, and there's like a video of it.
Yeah, and Logan brought him to the face-off. He's like, "Yeah, I got someone for you, bro. I found the security guard that choked you out. Come in here."
Yeah. He said, "You can't mess with me now. I got the security guard that choked you out."
Yeah.
But that's pretty funny. But yeah, he took another L in the ring when he couldn't even hit the security guard. The security guard made a miss. So shows how shit Dillon Danis is at boxing. But that's basically it. The Dillon Danis fanboys will be like, "Oh yeah, he just did it for the payday. So who's really winning?" And I mean, yeah, you're right. He did get paid a shit ton of money. So,
Yeah.
But I still don't. It's still embarrassing to get dominated by Logan Paul, no matter how way you cut it. So
Yeah.
especially after all the shit he talked.
Yeah. So yeah, that KSI fight was absolutely terrible. The Logan Paul fight was also really terrible. Like,
Best fight was Salt Papi Slim, my opinion.
Yeah. I believe our guest here had something to say about the influencer boxing scene as well, if he likes to speak up.
Hey, I did.
All
Yeah,
right.
Welcome, HASHI.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Yep.
This is our boy HASHI. I'm sure you guys
he's-
have seen him on streams before, or videos.
Yeah, just a little
So, yeah.
introduction. He's basically been a scriptwriter for a ton of my videos, and he's actually gotten a few produced that are currently in the works right now. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what was your take on YouTube boxing, HASHI?
I think the big problem with it is that these people are obviously entertainers at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
we're pushing all these people who want these views that, well, if you talk shit, you get hit.
yeah.
And so instead of caring more about this like very technical, intimate sport that is boxing, right? Or
It's like
even
chess.
MMA, which yeah, exactly. Instead of
Yeah.
seeing that, we're seeing people just being characters, and that's what Dillon Danis was doing, and that's what even KSI is trying to do, right? Where he's this boxing guy now.
Yep.
And so when we weigh like our expectations of like, oh, what do you think of Logan versus Dillon Danis? Like I was saying, I want Logan to lose a tooth because that'd be funny. It'd be hilarious. right.
Yeah.
But no, we got one of the worst fights I've ever seen. But if we flash back, what was it, 4 months ago? With Boogie and Wings?
Yeah.
I'd like convince you two to watch it. You guys were like, this doesn't look good. And then you started watching the press conference, and it turned out to be actually funny.
I watched
That fight
I watched
was
the whole Keemstar documentary on it. It was pretty good.
if we're talking about robberies, that fight was a robbery. I know people will say, well, like Boogie kind of got his towel thrown in, but no, they should have kept Boogie in there.
Yeah.
Nothing was gonna happen to Boogie. He would have been fine.
If they threw in the towel, they gotta stop it though. Come on.
No, Boogie would have been fine. Wings isn't gonna hurt him seriously. Let's be real here.
I don't know, man. Wings was putting some bombs on him, but yeah, Wings of Redemption versus Boogie might be my favorite YouTube boxing fight.
And
Oh
and
my
what were we
God.
saying
Oh.
should fight Wings of Redemption if he were to come back to the YouTube boxing ring?
Wings has talked about it on stream, but he wants to fight EDP 445. That'd be so good, man.
Wings would put it on him, bro. I 100% would dominate.
I
Wings by
would pay
KO.
for that.
I would.
I would buy it on my TV and I'd be watching it.
So
Dude,
look,
I would pay for it.
look, that man didn't get
Just
put
see
in
EDP
jail.
versus Wings,
that man
bro.
didn't get put in jail, so let's have
That's
Wings of Redemption
that's the
beat
stakes.
the
That's what the
fuck out of
stakes
him.
should be.
Yeah,
the stake should be that if EDP loses, he goes to jail. Like-
yeah. Give him some incentive to actually train.
Yeah.
And then
Oh
it's
my
like, all
gosh.
right, Wings, you are basically the gatekeeper to like, if you lose, this man doesn't go to prison. Like somebody that actively wants to like be with children. And now it's like, oh man, I gotta really seriously lose some weight and become this ultimate fighter. Get this guy out of here. Man, I want to see that fight now.
Yes.
Yeah,
That'd be a good fight.
it'd do good. And I was gonna bring up another fight that no one cared about, that I know about. So there's this gun YouTuber named Brandon Herrera, and he was supposed to fight like 5 other people, but they kept pulling out. So he ends up fighting this guy called James Sellers. I had to look it up while you guys were talking earlier because I forgot the other dude's name, and no one cared about it because, in mind you, I think Keemstar, what he's doing is genius, right? Because he's making bank off this. There's no way he isn't like off
Yeah,
all
he's
this,
probably
right?
gonna get a portion of the contracts.
Yeah, but he's trying to sell stories, right? And that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, these 2 people have been beefing for like months, and they're gonna fight, and go watch it on DAZN. You use code KEEM at checkout, of course. But that's not what boxing really is. That's like WWE stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you guys meant,
that's what I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast, is that this like idea about YouTube boxing is carried by personalities. Like the reason Conor McGregor
Yep.
is big is because of his personality. His fighting style
Yep.
helps. Like, don't get it wrong. Like him having a bunch of knockouts helps. But KSI can kind of fake that, and like these other YouTubers like Logan Paul and Jake Paul, they can kind of fake that by knocking out less good competition. So
Yeah.
they knock out trash fighters, bum fighters, and then have this big personality acting like they're something crazy, something way more than they actually are. You know, these guys aren't Muhammad Ali. I know Jake Paul's the greatest boxer of all time, and he's better than Muhammad. Yeah, Muhammad Ali. Jake is the goat of YouTube boxing, but he's like the best one I've seen, at least technically, and just athletically and potential wise. I think Jake Paul is the best. I still think Jake Paul would knock out KSI as well. But anyway, you know, they're not Muhammad Ali. They're not Conor McGregor. They're not Mike Tyson. They don't actually have the skills to back up their mouth. So what they do is they fight bums, and then they win, and they look good. So it just kind of fakes that same effect that makes those sports stars popular, you know. And I think this is kind of like the only sport you can do that in, because you can pick who you fight. Whereas like if you play like in the NFL, or if you play football, like you know, European football, or you know, soccer or whatever, if you play those sports, you know, they have designated teams that you're going to have to fight during your season, so or
Yeah.
play against during your season. So you can't escape from the fact that you're going to get thrashed up. Now KSI, he can choose whoever he signs a contract with to fight, so he can just keep signing these trash can. Like he could go fight Slim and people would watch it, you know what I mean? So, and if he knocked him out, you know, that adds to the highlight reel, and people are gonna get hype. And you know, I support anyone wanting to get into martial arts too. Like, don't get it wrong, I think that martial arts are great, and boxing's great, MMA is great, all of that's awesome stuff. And I mean, it can make you not only healthy, but it also can make you whoop ass, and that's just of added benefit. So
Yeah.
you know, I support anyone that wants to do that, but don't get it twisted. When these YouTube boxing cards are on, don't expect it to be a good card
No.
at all, because it's probably not going to be. Like a lot of even the Jake Paul fights were bad,
Yeah.
and he's the best of them.
Yeah.
So like the second Tyron Woodley fight until the knockout was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. Like it was looking as bad as KSI and Tommy Fury looked.
I still
So-
remember when we were watching that fight. I'm like, man, Woodley, do something. Stop standing
Oh
there.
my God.
Like, actually do something. Hit him. And like, there was a time where
Even
he
the
kind
first
of
fight was like that.
or he was like, he kind of rocked Jake, and I'm like, dude, Woodley, what are you doing? Get him. He's literally
His nickname.
yeah.
His nickname in MMA was the Chosen One. His nickname in boxing was the Frozen One.
Yeah.
He didn't move.
But, one
But,
of
I
the-
mean, that was Dillon Danis, so
Yeah, but one of like the pros that I've seen talked about from other people that are basically one of the reasons why they think YouTube boxing is a good thing, or influencer boxing is a good thing, is that it actually gets people who normally wouldn't even care about boxing to actually start caring about and actually might get into it.
yeah.
It might actually bring some relevance back to boxing and martial arts and make it a little bit more relevant again and get some new young eyes on the sport.
Yeah, because all these people are gonna be seeing KSI look like ass repeatedly. Some of those fans might want to see someone who's actually good at boxing, so they'll go
Yeah.
watch Canelo.
Yeah, they'll watch,
They're
they'll
like,
watch
oh,
Canelo, they'll watch Ryan
you know,
Garcia, and like especially if some of these
yeah,
guys actually start beefing
Tank
with them.
Davis.
Yeah, and then they'll actually like start like caring about who are these other people that, like, obviously all these other influencers that are getting into boxing now have to be aware of, because they need some reference into who's actually good in this scene that I can look at and realize, okay, this is like a goal of what I want to look like eventually, right?
Yeah.
Or just like
I also think that the people that are interested in fictional scaling, which we're going to get to that here in a minute. We were just talking about the YouTube boxing section for the first part of the video because it happened yesterday. But we're going to get into some fictional scaling stuff here in just a minute. But for people that like power scaling and fictional scaling, we're just reading manga and stuff like that. One of the big attractions to it is the fights, right? Like if you read shonen, you're kind of watching it just to watch fights.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you like fights in fiction, you'll more than probably going to like fights in real life. So, I mean, if you like super technical, really great sportsmen, or if you're into any kind of sports, like I don't even like most traditional sports. Like I really don't care for baseball. I don't care for American football. I don't care for European football or soccer. I don't care for hockey. You know, I don't really like a lot of sports, but I like MMA a lot, and it's one of my biggest passions because, I mean, just seeing who can beat the hell out of each other. I mean, it's fun, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like if you ever go to a UFC party, it's some of the best times I've had. So I mean,
yeah, I think one of the bigger draws.
Definitely get into it.
I think one of the bigger draws for why it's much easier for, say, like fictional power scalers to get into, like, say, like MMA or boxing, all that stuff, is because you go to watch a fight for the actual fighter, right? The actual person that is engaging in the sport, as opposed to other like sports, like say basketball, like football, and all those other ones. Those are team based.
You might go for certain players, but still, there's more than one that you're caring about. So.
But typically, it's like those teams are like from like certain regions in the country, and those are the main reasons why they like people end up supporting them, and not just because of the specific team. Because usually you'll have like people talking about like, oh man, like the Golden State Warriors they didn't have a good as a team this year because they didn't have like a certain guy on our team that was like a really good center or something. Like you'll have like those types of
a lot of people like just like teams and stuff like that. You're right. They're just so loyal to whatever city they're from. You know, if they're from LA, they're gonna like the Lakers. You know what I mean? Or whatever basketball team. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah. What were you gonna say a minute ago, HASHI?
Yeah, I think there were some exceptions for sure. Like there were people who were like Michael Jordan fans, or even right now like LeBron fans, right?
Yeah,
for basketball.
I'll watch LeBron regardless of what team he goes to.
Yeah, but you don't see those people like, man, that linebacker right there, he's my favorite. I've watched him through 15 teams, and when he was drafted from college, like no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't
unless
really
they're
see
just
that.
an absolute football nerd, but you know.
Yeah, but with like UFC, you know, you can, or really any combat sport, you can pick out your dudes and you can
Tyson
watch
Fury.
them through whatever.
A lot of people know who he is, and they don't even watch boxing. That's just because of how big of a star he is, and how, I mean, his fighting style is crazy, man. And that's, if you guys want to try out combat sports for the first time, go watch Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou later this month. It's this month.
Yeah.
Also, watch the UFC card coming this next Saturday. It's this Saturday. Watch those two things. If you want to see some good ass combat sports, watch those two things. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say about that. I think that combat sports are just a good medium for people to let out their anger too. I mean,
yeah. So you got to realize, like, a lot of the, especially if you're into anime, a lot of the references that animators use is actual real life combat.
Yeah.
And you got to realize that a lot of like the things they end up implementing come from these sports. And I feel like you're gonna
all the martial arts animes.
Yeah, and I feel like you're gonna, because especially one of the ones I've been watching recently is Hajime no Ippo, and that is like an entire boxing anime where they talk about certain hits that you certain like punches that you can throw, like certain types of boxing styles. So some are unorthodox, some people are in-fight boxers.
In-fighting, out-fighting, probably.
Yeah, some who are primarily just for like getting points and decision, and will even like literally, there's a whole episode how there's this guy that just goes for points and he mainly clinches the whole time and everyone hates him. Like there's like a whole thing like that, and you just end up like, I just felt like that kind of helped me really start getting into like combat sports.
you're making a good point because it'll just give you insight onto how combat works in general. I mean, if you're watching a fighting anime and they're using Wing Chun techniques, it's going to give you further insight in that. You're actually going to be able to recognize it and like appreciate it. So
Yeah.
it might even make your anime and like manga watching experience better if you're specifically into like martial arts anime or martial arts movies, even if any Bruce Lee fans that
Yeah.
like watching Bruce
Like,
Lee
why do you think
movies. I
so
mean,
many
hey,
people
this
like
is-
Naruto so much? It's because a lot of like
Yeah.
the anime like content has a lot of like martial arts like based combat that's implemented into the animation. That wasn't even
Taijutsu, man.
that wasn't even like necessarily a part of the actual manga. It's just something that the animators like inputted in because they thought it was really cool. So it's just
Yeah,
like if you
so-
really want to start getting into that kind of stuff, you got to like start. I think you should start looking more into actual combat sports and start getting more relatively like knowledgeable in. I think you'll end up enjoying this stuff a lot more.
I think Noodles brought up a great point earlier when he brought up that in combat sports there can be like triangles where one person can beat another person who can beat another person, but it's not like this like linear thing, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think when you learn more about that in fighting sports, that everything's not just this linear like, oh no, he's the champ, so he just beats everybody. It's
I
like
can give a
no,
good example of this if you want.
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay. George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier in 2 rounds. Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali beat George Foreman. How's that work?
It does.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. The thing
yeah,
is
what
that
I was gonna bring
I
up
think
is
before you get
wait,
into that though,
Surf.
I wanted to like I
Oh.
want to make this quick
Alright.
point real quick because I brought up the whole point about KSI versus Jake Paul, and that's like, oh, if KSI beats Tommy, that means he's better than Jake. But obviously, Noodles went into a whole ass discussion as why that doesn't actually really apply. That linear scaling doesn't really work for boxing in real life.
Yeah, but the point I was going to bring up is that when you have that mindset that people can beat each other without just being like infinitely superior or whatever, you can look at like your anime and manga differently, and even outside of like pure battle manga, like let's say you're like watching Yu-Gi-Oh and you're like, maybe that guy only beat that other guy because his deck worked out better,
Yeah.
you know? Or anything like that, and it can add this like nuance to it, and that's always kind of the beauty of looking into more stuff is you expand your worldview.
Plus, it's fun as hell. Like when you
Yeah.
see someone get knocked out, that shit's crazy, bro. You're like, oh, you know. Like,
When you hear
it might seem a little
like-
brutal, but hey, they agreed to it, not me. You
Yeah.
know? They're the ones that
Yeah.
signed the contract to do it. So fuck it. If it's gonna be on, you might as well watch it. It's kind of
when
like
you're
that
hearing
car
two
crash
flyweights
effect.
kick
Go ahead.
each other.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when you're hearing two flyweights kick each other, you can hear the cracks. It's like, god damn, man.
Yeah, flyweights are fun,
You
man.
just
People
gotta kinda
sleep on
respect.
flyweights. Even though they're small, bro, they're so fast. It's crazy. They're like blitzing. Like I can't even like read what they're doing. It's just funny as hell. Like Chael Sonnen was talking about Demetrius Johnson, who's like the best flyweight ever, and he's just like half the time I don't even know what he's doing. I'm like I don't know what he's doing either. Like, it's just crazy. And the thing with fighting is, this is kind of an older criticism with like boxing and MMA and stuff like that. They're like, oh, it's so barbaric. It's like human chicken fighting or human dog fighting. And it's like, it's kind of like that, but these are 2 consenting adults. And, this
Yeah.
actually, a lot of people with a lot of messed up past have been able to box and get themselves out of that. Like Mike Tyson had a really dark past, and, he just got picked up off the side of the road by his coach, and he became his legal guardian and became the heavyweight champion of the world and lived a lavish life after that. And now has a really good life. And, all that happened literally because of boxing. So even though it might seem brutal, I mean, there's good things about it. So
Yeah.
I think that it also pays a lot.
Yeah.
So why not?
I was just gonna say that was literally the story of Rocky. He was just a bum that like would occasionally get into like certain brawls, and like his coach at the actual gym hated him because like, dude, you have some legit potential for boxing, but you just have zero drive. Like I just like I would love to train you, but I just don't see like boxing heart in you, bro. It's like I can't work
Yep.
with that. But then eventually,
Good old Mick.
yeah, then eventually he's like, you know what? Like he kind of like got into this mindset, and then Rocky became one of the most successful like boxing films and series in like ever. Like that's like one of my favorite.
I mean, that's
like,
the
movies ever.
go-to movie. If if you want to introduce someone to boxing or martial arts, that's the movie you show.
Yeah,
You show them
Rocky. You show them Rocky,
Like,
bro.
let's watch Rocky.
Yeah, watch
You'll-
Rocky. Watch
It's just
the
one of those
Eater
movies. It's a
Creed
very
movies.
feel good movie.
Yeah.
It's a feel good 80s movie. So if you like 80s movies, or if you've never tried an 80s movie, I know there's some weird people out there like, oh, I only watch new movies, and I'm like, well, you're missing out on decades of good movies. But okay, so
Yeah.
you know, it's like not watching Pulp Fiction just because it's old. You know, that movie's so good, you gotta watch it. So,
But
but yeah, I think.
Yeah, we're going.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
I was just gonna talk about the next topic that we have going on, but
Okay.
alrighty. So what we have next that was going on last week that was very monumental that finally happened is we got the reveal of this new web anime for Dragon Ball, now dubbed Dragon Ball Daima. And essentially obviously for those who haven't seen it, it's essentially this new web anime series where essentially a bunch of the characters due to some force or some wish that some character made, now the entire cast has now become kids, and now Goku's going on this adventure to see how he can like get them back from being kids or whatever. And that's essentially the series.
Dragon Ball GT2.
And we'll get into that. So that's essentially one of the big criticisms is just like we're getting basically Dragon Ball GT because that's how it started, was that Pilaf wished Goku to be a kid again. And that was
And not Pilaf.
And yeah, and now
He's
like
literally back, bro.
yeah, and now everyone's like, dude, I don't want to see Dragon Ball GT again. But I guess this is like the topic of conversation where we can now get into is like, what do we expect from this?
I mean,
So,
I haven't even seen the trailer. Go ahead, Ashi.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say was during Super's lifespan, when Super was airing and everything was good in the world, right? We got news that in Japan they were putting together this room called the Dragon Room, and basically it was so that Toriyama didn't have to write everything anymore. So we would get Dragon Ball stories, presumably canon ones, that were just as good, and had like the spirit of Dragon Ball, but we didn't always have to have Toriyama writing them.
That's fine.
We also
but,
we also then had Toyotaro eventually pen his own arc in the manga, that being the Moro arc. A lot of people like that arc, fine. And instead of adapting any of that, we get GT2. So I see that as like a colossal waste of resources. I don't know if anybody else sees it that way, but
why
we have
wouldn't
like
they
all
animate
this
the new
material.
manga or the new Super manga chapters. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know why we aren't getting Tooper, as what people call it on Twitter, but
Yeah.
yeah, Tooper. Yeah. But another thing I noticed was that the animation was very shiny.
It's definitely
When I
with
say shiny, I mean
with the hair, yeah. But luckily, what was it? Yamamaro has nothing to do with this project whatsoever. I think he's strictly going with Dragon Ball Heroes right now. But typically, what they're trying to do with the art style is they're trying to mimic it very much closer to what modern Toriyama looks like, and that's why there's some shine to the hair. But typically, a lot of what we're seeing from the characters is that they can actually have like fluid animation. They are not like just action figures like they were in Super.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. My main concern about the shine to the hair, and I voiced this to you, Surfbone, in DMs and whatnot, is that I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna have what happened with Super, where we'll have some really good stuff and a lot of mid. But also, because this is being done by Toei, I think Egghead for One Piece is gonna suffer.
Oh yeah.
And whenever the Digimon Season 2 reboot comes out, that's gonna suffer too.
Right. Yeah, I've seen what you've been saying about that, but luckily from all the information I've been hearing, this is especially coming from Anime AJ, who's been having some insider connections and has actually been correcting geekdom on a lot of the information that he's been coming out with in regards to the web anime, which I thought was really funny. But essentially this time around, they're actually going to have a really like structured staff, and who's going to be a part of it. They're actually going to have a really, really good schedule in terms of like when stuff's going to be animated and everything. And it's not going to be like Super where it's going to suffer utterly because the reason why that whole animation suffered at the beginning was because of how rushed it was, to the point where like it was like, say with the season 3 of Attack on Titan, literally one of the animators was talking about how like they basically compared their schedule to how Dragon Ball Super was at the beginning. Like that's how infamous it was even in the animation industry. For why it's
I mean,
so bad.
I was reading like a, yeah, I mean, I would hope the animation's gonna be good. It's just fundamentally going to be another series putting like load on Toei, right?
Yeah.
But
Why don't they
another
try and make
concern I had.
another new series instead? I don't know. Just an idea. Maybe stop making new Dragon Balls, but I don't know. People love it too much, I guess. Makes too much money.
But the thing is, we
we'll
don't
never
even
stop
know
making
whether
them.
or not this is going to be canon to the main story of Dragon Ball. So that's
Might
going
be a
to
Dragon Ball Hero situation. Or
it
something.
could be. The problem is we don't really know. There's not a lot of information that was revealed about even where it takes place during the timeline. All we know is that we're not going to be seeing anything from Super in terms of transformations. Like there is a very, very low possibility we might even see Ultra Instinct whatsoever. Some people just are just saying like, you know what? I don't want them to be turned into kids. I think we should have just gotten like, we just want to see Goku and Vegeta just fight each other, bro, or something like that. Like they just wanted that remaster of Super. And honestly, it's gonna be interesting to see what this series actually offers. Because one of the main questions that obviously everyone has is like, it's one thing to turn Goku back into a kid again, but why everybody? Because literally everybody was turned back into a kid.
It's weird.
I read this Toriyama interview that he put out, right? Like this like note about it. And I'm not gonna read the whole thing.
Yeah.
But he effectively says that he's trying to like explore the mysteries of like the Dragon Ball world, and that he hope you all will enjoy these different from usual battles that are cute and powerful. So my main concern is that if you're having to like reassure us that it's going to be powerful or whatever,
Yeah.
what was really the point of turning them into the kids? And I'm not trying to disparage original Dragon Ball, because we can talk about this eventually about snobbery, but no one's really nostalgic about original Dragon Ball. In fact, it's very hard to watch original Dragon Ball like legally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In any good way. Like I don't think you can watch it in HD. Just because it was very archaic recording technology.
Well, no, I think
But
certain like animation channels have talked about how like even like I think Totally Not Mark was talking about it in one of his in one video of just basically why a lot of like the official releases for Dragon Ball are just utterly garbage, and that essentially you have to find this very niche form of like Dragon Ball Z that actually looks good like to the most like up extent in comparison to all these other like his like the Funimation orange whatever box like really sucks. All of them really suck, and like all the official releases like just officially suck, and only one niche one that's like in this very niche part of like Europe is where you can get it. And I think it's called like the A and B group release or something. That's like the only good one.
Oh, yeah. What I was gonna say was I don't know if you know the reason why Kai was actually done, but it was because of when they made Z, they had the audio like as this like visual wave on the bottom of like the tape, of like the master tape. But that sounds like trash now if you put it through modern equipment. So they wanted to redo the audio effectively, and then marketing and whatnot got in there. But I don't see why in the year 2023 you can't really watch Dragon Ball in high quality like original Dragon Ball, especially when this is a very clear nostalgic thing.
I would actually have rather a Dragon Ball remaster than
yeah,
a new series, to be honest.
Yeah, like a remaster of it. I think that would have actually gotten people to watch original Dragon Ball instead of whatever we're getting right now.
They could even add shit to it, like just add details, maybe to something that we haven't seen before. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, Team 4-Star kind of did that. I don't know if you guys remember, but they added in interview stuff to some flashbacks for like Android 16.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But one thing I was gonna note is that you'll notice with like Xenoverse, for instance, right? they keep like when Super was coming out, they're pushing out Super content. Like they rushed to get Hit into the game and then redid him later with more of his cooler abilities. Put Jiren in there, Zamasu, you know.
Yeah.
But you'll see, and you saw Fighter Z2, people also want original Dragon Ball stuff.
Yeah.
So if you redid original Dragon Ball, you can then do this big push on the video game side for original Dragon Ball
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm pretty sure Kakarot
That's-
just recently came out with a DLC just for original Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
A DLC for it, and not like actually a part of like the story.
That should have
even
just
though,
been
even
in
though,
the game, bro.
yeah, that's the first. That's literally Dragon Ball Part 1 is original Dragon Ball, and they had it as a DLC because they know
Like-
most of the actual fan base has not watched it.
Yeah, like I know for 30 years, like you know, this is like before Super, because I'm pretty sure we're at its 40th anniversary right now,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
yeah. Now we're at
But
we're getting Daima.
If you go through every game that Dragon Ball's gotten that is like some sort of a story game, it is a Raditz taboo every time.
Yep.
Raditz taboo. And it just makes me wonder, like, why hasn't anybody tried to like rekindle this Dragon Ball love?
I don't know. They're probably just some corporate shit. You never know, because you know they could just be pushing for certain things that stock shareholders control everything these days. So you never know with something that's making as much money as Dragon Ball, it just might not have the creative freedom. You never know with something like that. So it would be nice to see if they did bring about some older Dragon Ball stuff, or maybe even a remaster of Z wouldn't be bad, or a remaster of both would be nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they were talking about doing the remaster of Naruto for a while now, and I'm like, dude, Dragon Ball, bro, that shit needs it. Could you imagine, like,
Yeah.
I know this is obviously far fetched, but it is possible if they did it right. Like if they got like JJK level animation for Dragon Ball fights.
Oh, you should
know
have
what I mean?
seen basically in the Dragon Ball Daima trailer, a lot of people were picking out the many different instances where they basically redrew or reanimated certain scenes from the Boo saga. And they're just like, dude, like that shit looks hella good. And some of them just look like they came straight from the manga and like enhanced into what modern Dragon Ball should look like. And like, dude, it definitely just told us if they did a remastered of original Dragon Ball right now, or even Z, it will look hella good right now. Like they basically figured
that
out
would
what
be nice.
modern
Hey,
Dragon Ball
actually-
looks like.
I actually want to pose a question to both of you about this.
Okay.
You kind of mentioned that like some of the stuff looks like it's from the like from the manga, the Boo saga redraws, and it looks good. With like an original Naruto remaster, do you want the fights purely from the manga, or do you want it to be like a Zoro versus King situation where they just go throw the manga out the window and do some sicko stuff?
I like how the manga portrays most things, so I would like it if they included what the manga had, but added on to it, just like they did the final fight with Naruto and Sasuke.
Yeah.
So, like, Kirin, for instance, like when he summons Kirin, he doesn't do that in the manga, right?
Yeah.
So, in the end,
Yeah.
that's anime only. I mean, that was awesome. So, I wouldn't mind if they just added to it. I think they should include, because, I mean, like, what are you going to do? Take out the Shuriken scene with, like, Zabuza and Naruto? Like, where he shadow clones into a Shuriken and Sasuke throws him or whatever. I mean, that scene was cool. They should keep that. But
Typically they'll keep
Go ahead.
Yeah, typically they keep the important stuff, like with Goku versus Cell, but then they'll add in like a cut of it that's just this like sicko mode animation that wasn't in the manga.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah,
like
I'm fine with that. Just
change
add to
anything
it.
about the fight.
Yeah, just keep the important stuff, add to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would do. So
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, because like there's the whole stuff regarding like Bleach recently, where in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc they actually added in a lot of stuff that a lot of people said was like really good additions to the 1,000-Year Blood War. So I feel like
Yeah, but
there's
that
definitely
wasn't
potential
finished
for it.
in the manga.
Oh right, okay. That's probably
Yeah,
recent.
so that's kind of
good.
like everybody wanted the 1,000-Year Blood War to be fleshed out, but I feel like part 1 of Naruto is like definitely more watched than the original Dragon Ball by a long shot.
oh yeah.
Right.
But we
You
still
kind
do
of have to
we
watch
still
it before Shippuden, right? But I know
yeah,
there's
but
people
we
that
do
did
have
skip the
people.
Shippuden.
Yeah.
I know there are.
Yeah,
those people.
exactly.
Ugh.
I think early Shippuden's not even that good, so I don't get it. Like, I'd rather watch Land of Waves or something than early
Dude,
Shippuden.
part 1 of Naruto is some of the best arcs, man. Like some of the best villains too. Orochimaru was menacing. Like he was just every time he was on
Yeah.
screen, he was doing something that was gross or creepy. Like it was like, okay,
Yeah.
Orochimaru. Like, and he keeps coming back too, bro. He never stops coming back.
He-
So
He's gross, he's creepy, and you love to hate him. Great
Yeah.
villain.
and he's really intelligent. I mean, there's just a lot of likable and dislikable traits about him. He's super interesting motive wise too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
He honestly, this is actually a really good segue into our very next topic, which we're now no longer on like the recent stuff. We're now getting into some talk about Naruto, which I've been seeing more recently in regards to like Twitter, is the age-old question of does Genjutsu affect characters without chakra? Which I'm sure both of you have seen that question posed several times throughout the years, and people still think it's a relevant topic to talk about. I recently had someone propose that
to put it plainly, yes, it can work on things without chakra. So for starters, and I know people will be like, "Oh, well, that's still energy," you know, and that's true. It is energy, but it works on sage creatures. Sage creatures don't have what is like normal chakra. They have sage energy, which is like nature energy. So that's pretty akin to what ki is too. So
Yeah.
I mean, even by that standard, it would at least work on like Goku and people like that, right?
Yeah.
But it also works on things that are potentially inanimate as well. So like we have Genjutsu, like what's the one that changes fate? Izanagi, not Izanami, Izanagi. Izanagi allows you to like alter reality and change fate. Okay, is that working on things with just no chakra? Obviously not. It's working on reality itself, which is not alive. It's like
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add in is that Izanagi's Genjutsu so good you like fool reality.
yeah,
It changing.
It literally changes reality. You can change things that you just don't die the next time and things like that, and also just I mean, just the ability to alter reality is pretty OP. Izanami is the same way. It loops reality. It's like looping fate. So if you're looping fate and looping reality, that's also another inanimate. And I know those are specific kind of genjutsus, but even things like the Tsukiyome allows you to inject chakra into people's mind to control them. What would stop, like, controlling someone with chakra or controlling someone without chakra? If you control someone with chakra, that honestly should make it harder than controlling someone without chakra. Because, I mean, you're just adding something else for them to be able to defend against. Because some people are just able to resist Genjutsu just through sheer chakra amount or sheer power, like they're not up there Genjutsu and Momoshiki, you know what I mean? Like they're not Genjutsu and Kaguya.
It's
So,
basically the reverse
yeah.
like logic of when Bleach fans say that you basically, if you don't have Ryatsu, you get shit on.
One of my points, your phone.
I took that from you. Were you gonna say the exact same thing?
What happens when you plan stuff beforehand?
Man.
I was gonna say something else about because Noodles is making a really good point, but I think he forgot something or he didn't mention it well enough. But he mentions all this stuff about Genji, so like Izanagi can like rewrite reality and Yomi can do this. But in Naruto, something that's never ever mentioned as like a perk of any of these Genjutsu is that it works on other things. Like that's never a conversation Itachi, Sasuke,
Yeah.
or anybody has. They just kind of assume it does, and that should say something about like their fodder Genjutsu that they don't name.
Yeah.
But the point that
Surfbone. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you go. Oh, you go.
Okay, I was gonna say I saw this funny comment the other day talking about how the kid in the Forest of Death, that Genin that they fight for like the whole day, the one that was using like the Shadow Genjutsu, that Genjutsu was better than Kyoko Suigetsu.
Oh my god!
Because it lasted for the entire day and night.
Yeah.
I was like, and it works on all five senses, just like Kyoko Suigetsu.
No, 6. Yeah, it works on 6 because you there's that scene with Jiraiya where Jiraiya explains you have your chakra spin sense too. But what I was gonna say about Bleach fans though, what's really funny is because of Naruto's getting pushed by people like Noodles. Thank the Lord we have good Naruto content.
Whoa. Good Naruto content.
We'll see these people who are kind of newer to the community who will be like, well. They'll say like, oh, well, Genjutsu wouldn't affect my character. He doesn't have chakra. But then they'll go off and say like, well, if you can't see souls, you can't see Ichigo.
Yeah.
Or, if your character's in this fight with my character, you just don't have any powers because whatever reason, and it's like I don't get it, like why you think that argument's even valid.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the same type of argument where they're like, okay, well, Naruto can't use chakra cross verse, and it's like, why can't he use chakra cross verse? Well, because chakra doesn't work cross verse. Okay, if chakra doesn't work cross verse, why does hockey work across verse? Why does
Yeah.
Ryatsu work across verse? Why does ki work
and-
across verse? I mean, all
Well,
those things are just energy sources, and yeah, like no anime and manga is going to be the exact same. They're all going to have their own energy system, so it's just easier if you want to have a conversation about like who wins in a fight. Let's give them all of their abilities, because if we don't do that, we're just arbitrarily limiting one of them.
Yeah.
So it's just stupid.
Because
Let's not have
ultimately,
that kind of conversation.
Because ultimately, what they're doing, and I feel like this is why I really want to make some of these energy system videos, where if we really boil down and start deconstructing them, you end up realizing that they all have the exact same base, where a lot of them are just life energy sources that are then incorporated into their biological systems that they're able to like. And it's like, oh, in Ki, it's known as like the latent powers within somebody. Chakra was something that was given to them by Kaguya that they can now manipulate within their own physical energies that their own body provides, and then mix in with the spiritual energy, and you create chakra, and then you get these attacks. And it's like with magic, it's the same thing in Black Clover, where it's just like, oh, now they have like this ability to use mana or whatever, and there's some characters that don't even have it, and there's all this other stuff, and it's like eventually when you start boiling all this stuff down and what they actually stand for, it's not like, oh, chakra is just chakra and you can't fight someone else without chakra, and the same thing with ki or all that stuff. It's like, but how we need to like actually start boiling down what are these things in reality, and how did they define what chakra is and what ki is, in order to like actually like summarize, if we're now substantiating that chakra can't supposedly work on these other characters, why? Not just that it's a different energy system.
I think there's a few fundamental things wrong with the idea anyways. Like there's this very clear bias, and the bias is to these verses that just do big boom.
Yeah.
You know, like in Naruto, it's like, oh, well, they have chakra, but chakra isn't 1-to-1 with AP. You have to like manipulate it, and that actually takes nuance.
Yeah.
But this verse over here, they just make big boom good. You know.
Yeah.
Big boom is good, but at the same
yeah.
time, you got to understand that energy systems are energy systems. Let's combine them just for the sake of the debate. Because if Naruto can't use chakra, what the fuck are we even talking about? Like Naruto, he can't use any of his abilities. Like that's his ability. Like he can use chakra for ninjutsu and taijutsu.
Yeah,
and he doesn't even have genjutsu.
It's funny.
So it's like
it's funny that you're mentioning that, because we're basically talking about verse equalization. Which when I made a video on it, and I think I told you about this before, and I even talked about this on the first episode, that the first thing that people started bringing up in my comments was that essentially they didn't like it because a certain character by the name of Asta from Black Clover would essentially get an absolute buff if it was verse equalization. Because they would essentially say, like, oh, Asta's attacks only work on magic specifically, so if you placed him up against any other character, he sucks. But if you don't say that, then he absolutely wins.
About that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude.
I want to talk about that for a second if I can.
Go ahead.
And I kind of brought this up with the big boom thing, but I really don't like it in the community where people treat it like it's like a game, right? We're patching it, like we're bringing up this new idea. It's like, no. I get folks are coming in from TikTok nowadays who watch JJK, My Hero, and Kagurabachi, the greatest manga known to man.
Hell yeah.
But
Kagurabachi!
Yeah, but I don't think that excuses you from realizing that these good ideas have been around for years, and it's always been really weird people who disagree with them.
Yeah. And it's always for like super like basic reasons, like that are obviously like entailed to their own bias. It's like, well, I don't like it because that means this character would now be my favorite character. That's essentially why they don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, how would you even prove if chakra does work cross-verse? Like, how would you ever prove that?
That it's not some dude. Like magic? Does magic exist in Naruto? No. Okay. So why the fuck would there be magic in Naruto? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way you can just compare those things unless you just go ahead and give up that we'll just equalize them for now. You know what I mean? Like, we're just talking about
Yeah.
what would happen if his abilities collided with his abilities. If we're taking away one of their abilities, there's no point in even having that conversation anymore, because
Yeah.
now we don't actually know who would win at their peak. You're just disadvantaging one of them.
Like,
which is
because we're
stupid, in my
obviously
opinion.
we're already taking the by giving both characters the benefit of the doubt, and we're trying to put them in this neutral space where they're able to fight each other without existing in their own series, and we're saying duke it out right now. But you're just gonna already start off the battle by saying, well, because the other character, his whole thing is that he's only able to affect this certain like power system. That means he would be practically useless in a cross-verse fight. It's just like, man, you're just like the absolute party pooper that doesn't like having these conversations, do you?
And I think this kind of blends into our next topic, where
Yep.
people say we can't do this because we can never know who wins. And I
Oh,
think
yep.
it's just the most asinine topic to bring up,
Oh, yeah.
because it's like, and you'll see this on like Comic Vine, Space Battles even, is it's like a very like snobbish remark to anybody who wants to power scale, and it's always, well, we can never know unless we get two authors together who both write the individual series, and they'll come together and they'll tell us.
Yeah.
And the quick and easy response to this point people will make is, well, how do authors really write their work, right? Do you think that they don't read anything about it and they just scribble down and then that's gospel or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, no, they obviously read what came before. And fundamentally, that's what we're doing too. You know, I've read all of Naruto, I've read all of One Piece, and here's my opinion based on what occurs in both series.
Hoshi's
You know?
talking about that
Yeah.
death of the author.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what we're getting to.
I actually had a really good argument about Death of the Author with a guy the other day, and I basically described it to him like this, because, you know, like, a lot of people had problems with like J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter and how she handled that, and she had talked about Death of the Author and things like that, which I don't really know about that whole situation, but regardless, Death of the Author is not an argument. A lot of people think this is like a debate. It's
Yeah.
just like a philosophical truth. Like, okay, think of it this way, right? Let's say a painter, because writing is art, painting is art, music's art, all of these things are just forms of art. Okay, so let's say a painter paints a picture of a horse. Okay, and it looks just like a horse. Let's say if you look at it, it looks just like a horse. And someone walks up and they're like, "Oh, that looks like a good picture of a horse." And then the painter then turns to them and says, "That's not a horse. That's a castle, or that's a boat." They say something like that. Well, just because their word says it's a castle or a boat doesn't change the fact that the painting itself still looks like a horse. And
Yeah.
that exact same principle applies to writing. Like, what if Kishimoto just randomly tweeted one day, "Hey guys, I forgot to tell you, Naruto's a girl," right?
Yeah.
Like, is he right now because he's the author? No, he's not right. He's wrong about his own series, and you can be wrong about your own series. A lot of these, like, appealing to the author things are just appeal to authorities. So these arguments that people make where they're like, "Oh, the author said so," that's appealing to the authority that he's an author. The fact of the matter is, these people can be wrong about their own series and can misremember things. So yeah, we are just as much a valid judge as they are, as long as we provide proof. Go ahead, Josh.
An argument that I make in an upcoming Surfbone video is that when people say like, oh, well, he's the author, he knows a lot, that's not a has to statement. The author doesn't have to know anything. It's an ought to statement. Sure, the author ought to know a lot about their story, but they don't have to. And even going further than that, if we're talking about Naruto, what is Naruto? Well, if I look it up on Google, it'll probably tell me it's an anime, manga, etc. But is Naruto Kishimoto's Twitter? Is Naruto the crumpled up napkin that Kishimoto might have drawn the hidden leaf symbol on? Is Naruto the letters he sends to Oda when he was in the hospital back in 2014? No.
Samurai 8 Naruto? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this might bore some people to tears, but this is a very real question that philosophers have had. And Derrida kind of brought this up with, should we include this note that Nietzsche forgot his umbrella in the collected works of Nietzsche?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is all
and so I
like...
think it gets to...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wait, one last thing, sorry. I think it gets to an ambiguity fallacy, where you're taking the word Naruto and you're trying to expand it beyond its original scope in an argument to try to make yourself right. Because if we're talking about Naruto, I don't think we have to include every random Kishimoto statement, every random napkin scribble.
Yeah. And this
Yeah.
kind of like ties
Not to
into
mention, people get the author statements wrong all the time too.
Yeah. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, and this kind of like ties into like one of the most like sought after and like most quotable things in regards to the whole like death of the author like debate that people have in this, that they always cite whenever Stan Lee's like, oh, you want to know who wins between Hulk and Thor? I'll tell you, it's whoever's writing the story decides that they want to make the winner. And it's just like, basically what people misinterpret when Stan Lee says that is that they don't realize that Stan Lee doesn't care about always getting these questions, because the thing is that he just isn't, it doesn't really bother him. Well, it's like it's bothered him to the point where he has to then be like this little like blue balls answer where it's just like, oh, it depends on whoever is writing it or whoever wants to win it or whoever it makes the most sense to win in that particular scenario. And it's basically like a no shit Sherlock moment. It's like, of course, whoever it makes the most sense to win. And that's
it doesn't actually
it doesn't
it
explain
doesn't
it.
expand. Like, yeah, the idea about power scaling is figuring out who would likely win a fight. So it's like, of course, who the author is going to decide who wins, but that doesn't tell us who's going to likely win.
I actually have apparently a pretty controversial take on that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I've had an argument about this. Especially in Marvel. Marvel does this a lot, and Token mentioned here, even Warhammer does it a lot, where there will be a fight where two people will fight and someone will win. But when you read the fight, it turns out that the other guy should have won by every metric, but there's like some excuse jammed in there. A popular one is in World War Hulk, Iron Man had like a one-shot weapon against Hulk that was sabotaged before the fight.
Damn. Yeah. So stuff like that can happen as well, but yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, sure, the author did say, like, you know, Hulk won, but would he have won if we put them in at their strongest with their best equipment, no outside interference?
I think there was also that.
Probably not.
I think there's also
Yeah,
a
exactly.
myth about Naruto that the reason why there was the whole Black Zetsu plot twist was because Kishimoto allegedly thought that Madara was already getting too strong and needed a certain way to get him out of the story, so he just made Black Zetsu like extraordinarily powerful and decided to say that he created all of Naruto, and that's why he took him out. Which I don't even know if that's true, but like it kind of speaks to what we're talking about.
It's not true because they fight Kaguya right after, bro.
Yeah,
who's just stronger than Madara. So if they beat Kaguya,
and if you actually watch that fight, Madara's losing. So
yeah,
to be fair, I guarantee that point is made by a Madara fanboy. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean
it was made up. Guarantee.
Another issue with like people just make up author statements too. Like you remember the whole like if Itachi met Madara on the battlefield, like Madara would have lost in 5 minutes. Like that statement was just so polluted around, but it was never actually said by Kishimoto. Yeah. So there's situations like that, even which misinformation.
Which kind of leads into our next topic about actually reading the source material or actually fact checking the information that is presented to you. Because even though we're all content creators, this is something that you gotta know when you're actually watching us or watching other people, is that although we may present you information, but sometimes either some of us will not even like actually tell you where it comes from, or sometimes it's just like we won't even present you exactly where it comes from, and it kind of leads you into like, okay, like, do I trust this guy to know that this is an actual real scan that actually exists? And that has to go into this whole thing where it's like, do you believe in this guy when he tells you, yeah, there's this certain scan out there that exists, and does he actually set the source? And you need to actually, like, we need to like actually tell you, you need to go look for this
Read
stuff.
the manga.
Like,
read the manga, watch the anime for yourself, read the data books for yourself, because guess what? Every single time you talk to someone about an anime or a manga, you're getting a secondary source.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking to someone who watched something, right? The primary source is just reading it or watching it yourself. That's the source. So go to the source to get info about series.
I'd like to say something. Obviously, Surfbone has a video about this coming out that I'd love to plug, but I think there are two levels to this, or like two sides, and one of them is I don't think that every scan we post needs this extra level of evidence that it's real. That's like, I think that'd be awful for the community, right? Because now we all have to show that this comes from like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it just gets this unreasonable level of evidence where it's like, can you show that belongs to Naruto? It's like, no. Like, if
People
like
take it too far sometimes in
Well,
debates,
like
you're right.
yeah,
that's
Just
like
asking
becomes
me to
the
prove
issue.
things that are unprovable.
The issue is that people are way too lazy to even like make the consideration that maybe they should look further into something to see if it's like an actual real thing instead of having to rely upon somebody else to tell them whether or not it's true or not. Because funny enough, one of the
I
things
mean,
that we actually found out, I think it was like a month ago, that there was like this infamous scan that was talking about whether or not the Anbu Black Ops in the Leaf Village were light speed. And then come to find out, someone ends up looking more into it, and not only is it mistranslated, it's not even in Japanese. It was written in Chinese. The one that's always just mass produced and shown to everyone isn't even the Japanese translation. It was the Chinese one.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I was
because
the one who even asked about. I mentioned that to somebody, and they told me that.
yeah, and it was just
I was
like,
what?
even though it's just like this niche thing that it doesn't really change anything whether or not it's true or not. It was because of how obscure it was, but it's so like a huge part of the Lightspeed Naruto meta that no one really cared to actually look into it. And then when someone finally decided to do so, they ended up finding its true origin and what actual language is being portrayed within the actual scan. So, because it's kind of hard for us, like English speakers, to actually dictate whether or not this actually is Japanese that we're reading or if it's Chinese or something like that.
Yeah, and that's again, this is why we tell people to get translations actually translated or actually go to a Japanese speaker, because even like Viz translations fuck up a lot. Like people mess up translations all the time or use words that aren't actually there. So if you guys want like good translations, the only true way to be able to get a good translation is just to actually have a Japanese speaker do it, which I know isn't conceivable for everybody, or it's too difficult to do. So 9 times out of 10, the official translation is fine. And most people won't be able to like call you out or debunk you on it anyway, 'cause they don't know the raw kanji or
I have a
speak
gripe.
Japanese. Go ahead.
I don't think we have a translation of Naruto, like an official one. We have a localization, and those are two different things. And we see this a lot with One Piece too. They adapt certain phrases and stuff like that to better fit what makes sense in English. One in One Piece, I think it was like I forgot. Oh, like Vegapunk says, I'm as busy as a beaver" in the Viz. But it turns out in Japanese, the phrase is about cats, like you're a busy cat or something like that. And Viz does this all the time, and Surfbone can attest to it too.
Yeah.
Where they mess it up. But I don't want to commit a genetic fallacy against Viz here. That's like that kind of goes back to our point about proving we need this extra level of evidence. It's just that if your point, like if you're trying to revolutionize something, you got to make sure you're right.
Yeah.
You know, you get like go get the raws, make sure you're rock solid.
Just because it's hard don't mean you can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, do it if
You
you
can
want to find
always-
out what the real translation is.
Yep, you can always there's always more to learn. I feel like that's one of the things about power scaling that's interesting, is that especially when it kind of encourages you, especially in this whole like learning about anime and manga stuff, we're learning more about language in order to better articulate our arguments and seeing what is true within a source material, especially when we have this whole localization problem that HASHI was talking about, that like things get changed in order for English speakers to better understand what's being conveyed, but doesn't necessarily like reiterate what's really being said in the Japanese kanji.
I think to kind of cap this off, I don't think that everybody needs to debate kanji. I think that'd be really toxic if we're all debating
Right.
on like these words. I just think people need to accept that their argument might be flawed because of it, and we need to better have this dialogue where if the Viz is right, then comma whatever.
Yeah.
In the same way people will accept anime scaling is different, people need to accept that Viz scaling might be slightly different too.
Yeah. But
Yep. I mean, if all you've known is the Viz too, there's nothing stopping you from just having someone agree to Viz translations.
right.
Like if they've read Viz,
Yeah.
you've read Viz, you could just be like, let's do Viz
Or-
translations.
this might trigger some people in the community, but you can agree to disagree. If it's like, hey, I've been reading the One Piece, like the pirated One Piece, or not One Piece. I'm like, hell, yeah, let's do One Piece. I've been reading the pirated One Piece as it came out. If Viz is different, then I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what my stance is true in Viz. Like, I genuinely don't read Viz, right? And I don't see why that's a bad thing. I don't know why people have to have such an ego that we need to talk about like Whitebeard versus Hashirama so much that we have to throw aside that we don't even have this common ground of what translation we're using.
Yeah. Which I guess properly leads into what we wanted to talk about, because we talked about like One Piece characters losing to Naruto characters in the previous podcast episode. So we felt like it's best to kind of go into this different topic that Hashi just mentioned, which was Whitebeard versus Hashirama.
Whitebeard versus Hashirama. Basically, the two planetary characters in Naruto, and people are gonna turn their heads at me and say, "What? Hashirama planetary? The BG Bomb was stated planetary, buddy."
Yeah.
Guess what? It's stated like 2 or 3 different times. It's stated in the Boruto guidebook. It's stated, or the Boruto, you know, that would talk about that magazine guidebook statement or whatever, the Shonen magazine. It's stated there. It's stated in the 4th data book, and it's stated that the Nine Tails can turn the world to ash, presumably with a strongest attack, the BG Bomb. Earth-shattering destructive power, enough power to obliterate the world. Those are all statements that describe the BG Bomb in the data books and guidebooks. So
I even
can totally argue that Go ahead.
I even had like a fluent Japanese and also local Japanese speaker tell me that, because someone was trying to tell me that it was hyperbolic for whatever reason, and he was just saying even by the kanji present, it doesn't make sense to not take it literally, because it talks about like the literal heavens and earth, like kanji were literally there, and saying like, oh, it's shaking the heavens and the earth with its like earth shattering destructive power. Like,
yeah. The Perfect Susanoo has a similar statement too, and the Perfect Susanoo scales to the Nine Tails and BG, the same people that Hashirama scales above. So, you can argue Hashirama's or planetary. It's not that difficult.
No.
At worst, he's multi-continental.
Yeah, I think the best route for an argument like this is to try to get him as close as possible, because I'm sure, as we're listing off why Hashirama's planetary, there's someone telling us about how Whitebeard is like multi-solar or something like that, you know. But for the sake of it, right, I think we can agree that saying that Hashirama's planetary is at best a fairly radical interpretation, right?
Yeah. It's just a high end for him. You can argue it from the data book.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But Whitebeard is comfortably there.
Yeah.
Easily.
Literally,
and his planet's bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, his first like actual statement when Whitebeard shows up on the scene is just the other guy from the Marines. It's like one of the strongest talks about the reason why Whitebeard is so fearful is because he has the power to destroy the world. Yeah. Like, that's his literal devil fruit power.
What we learned, and what we learned too is that his devil fruit power isn't even his full power. His advanced conquerors is.
He's got advanced conquerors hockey. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Since Naruto doesn't get chakra, by the way, Whitebeard doesn't get, you know.
His advanced conquerors.
That
not allowed.
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about that for a second. Does Whitebeard win without hockey? I think he does, right? He could just shatter, because
he's just stronger than Hashirama. He probably one-shot him, right?
Yeah.
In relative and speed.
Yeah.
Like they're both FTL, right? Surely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're
FTL
I was gonna
say put him at relative and speed too. Like,
Whitebeard is somehow even more of a Chad than Hashirama. So yeah, Whitebeard probably stomps Hashirama. And we decided we had to give One Piece fans the W, because last episode we kind of shit on y'all. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had an argument against Deep Forest Bloom, actually, because you saw Deep Forest Bloom didn't kill Inoki, right? And Inoki's like 3 foot tall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't kill him, right?
Yeah, he resisted it.
And yeah, no, of course, but you know, poison works based off your body mass, right? Like, you remember that episode of Adventure Time where Jake made his liver bigger?
Yeah, right? Yeah. He's like, if I grow 50 times my size, you won't be able to kill me anymore.
Yeah. Well, Whitebeard's like 20 feet tall. I don't think Deep Forest Bloom's doing anything to him.
Well, that poison has killed 0 people in the series. So I mean, You can't even really say it's lethal. It just puts you to sleep, puts fodder to sleep.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna put him to sleep either. Big liver.
He'll just punch Hashirama in the face and he'll die. Like that's probably what'll happen. Even the Buddha statue's getting obliterated. So, but yeah, like I said, we had to give One Piece fans the W because he got shit on last episode. But that being said, man, I've just come across more arguments why Saitama just like actually takes a shit on Luffy's forehead. Like it's not close. We were talking about Toon Force last episode, how Luffy has Toon Force or whatever, but unfortunately for y'all, I found this panel, which is basically just what's his name? What's his name?
Murata.
Murata, yeah, Murata, that's his name. Murata is like looking down at a drawing of Saitama, and Saitama just reaches off the paper and is drawing himself. So yeah. I mean, he's got Toon Force too. So I had a debate with. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, if people are gonna debate like who has better Toon Force, and you're gonna pull out like the interviews, like just stop. Get some help. Someone play the Michael Jordan ad.
Listen,
get some help, dude.
If Luffy's got Toon Force, Saitama does now. So.
For sure. Yeah.
I posted on my Twitter, by the way, guys. You guys should definitely go look at that. I don't know my Twitter handle off the top of my head, or I'd tell you. But yeah, go peep my Twitter. Should just type in Noodles Powerscaling or something on Twitter, and you should be able to find me. Yeah. I posted the panel of Saitama drawing himself and made like a little funny quip about Luffy. But yeah, like I didn't even mention this statement last time because it's actually going to be probably pretty important later. But there was a good cosmology statement after the time punch when Saitama does the time punch. Basically, Geno states that there was countless parallel worlds diverging. So it basically means that if there's countless parallel worlds, there's the potential for Saitama to, punch God who created everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying that's a possibility. So he could end up getting Multiversal Plus. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. But, yeah, Luffy is, at best, planetary star level, even if you wanted to say solar system level, which I think is definitely wank. Like Saitama destroyed hundreds of stars with one serious punch, and it wasn't even his full power. So how are we gonna say that Luffy wins? Yeah. It's just I had someone tell me today, well, he's rubber, he'll bounce back, and I'm like, what would he do if he destroyed the galaxy, bro? Can he even survive in space? No.
He
won't. He dies.
You know what? Someone else reiterated. Had like a debunk to that was Enel went to the moon, so that means that One Piece characters can survive. It's like that only means that character can survive in the moon. That doesn't mean that Luffy can now go in space, man. Like that's not how that works.
Yeah. No, not even close. Even close.
We know factually that Luffy has to breathe though. We see it in against Arlong, remember?
Yeah.
Where his body's underwater and that pulls head up. We see it against Caesar Clown in the gas at one point.
Yeah.
I think that's the type of dishonest argument that where you're just hoping someone doesn't know about something rather than trying to establish that it's the case, right?
Yep. That's all it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, Luffy ain't beating Saitama anytime soon.
No, Saitama shits on him. He's punches harder. So deal with it, chump. It's the same reason, and that's just to show you guys I'm not biased. I mean, I did just say Whitebeard slaps the shit out of Hashirama. Come on, like you think I don't even know who Whitebeard is, bro? Like I've seen one statement for him, and I'm saying he beats one of my favorite characters, Hashirama. He's not one of my favorites, but he's really cool. So can't say I'm biased. It's just a fact. Saitama shits on Luffy. Deal with it. That being said, let's get into the questions. So, Surfbone, I'll let you read off the first question if you want.
Alrighty. The first question that we got from Balrog Blaze was, are you going to cover how fast Naruto is, or are you going to do a video on how much power each tail grants to Naruto?
Each tail power is almost completely unquantifiable. I mean, you can't determine how much chakra is being put into each tail, how much chakra is in the cloak, any of that. Like, especially because Kurama's always getting stronger too throughout the series. So, like, I mean, do you think the one that was relative to that giant Momoshiki lava golem is the same Kurama that was like in part 1? I doubt it. And I mean, it's just not the same level. I mean, Hashirama, he goes from fighting someone like Hashirama to someone like Momoshiki, who's way more powerful. So, I mean, you can't really say to me that you can quantify the power of the tails at any point during the series because we just don't know how much chakras into them. There is a statement in the soccer novels, but that shit's not canon because I don't like it, so it's not canon.
Yeah.
It's so
I-
poorly written.
I feel like the tailed beasts were even kind of changed a little bit. Like after we saw like Shikaku in part 1 and into part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Naruto, like you're in part 1, there's clearly like this progression. Like, oh well, he went 1 tails, he went 2 tails, all the way up to Final Valley, right?
Yeah.
And I feel
People
like
have-
that's different from what people want. Where, because now we have a 1 tail, and Naruto can go 1 tail. But what
Yeah.
happens if Garo,
What about the
kinda weird,
version
right?
2 state too? You know, like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that
what,
too,
what,
right?
what is it's a version 2 tail worth more than a version 1 tail? I don't know. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of just we don't really know these things. There was one argument I saw that wasn't that bad, but it was basically that in part 1 when Sasuke fights Naruto at the Valley of the End, he uses the curse mark, which has a confirmed multiplier of 5 to 10 times power. We'll assume 10 times power just because Sasuke is pretty strong at that point and stronger than the rest of the Sound 5. But
He did have like the special curse mark too,
yeah,
like
exactly
a
right.
special
Yeah.
really good one.
Yeah, and he went version 2 and everything, so he should be 10 times power. And then Naruto summons, was it 1 or 2 tails? I think it was 2, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, whatever the amount was, so you can like compare it to the curse mark ant. But even that's pretty damn flimsy because we don't even know who's stronger in base, and that can change all the numbers and things like that. It seemed like Naruto was actually stronger in base, but then Sasuke got the 3rd Tomo. We don't know how much that's playing in effect, so it's pretty unquantifiable. As for if I'll ever make a video on how fast Naruto is, I'm actually going to be doing a video with Swag Kage. He told me in DMs that he wanted to do a video on I can't remember if it was how fast Naruto was or just the light speed meta in Naruto, but there are a lot of light speed feats. I'll just give you one just for the sake of it. But the samurai at the Kage Summit can slice at the speed of light. So there you go. It's
There's another
directly
one
shown.
there too with Darui.
Yeah, Darui has laser circus there, so that's also light speed. So there's a bunch of light speed stuff pretty early. There's FTL stuff, there's FTL plus stuff. There's MFTL calcs, and there's even like inaccessible and immeasurable speed arguments and stuff like that people use. But yeah, I'll definitely cover all of that at some point and more in depth as well. So Hashi, you can take the next question.
What are your thoughts on Minato versus Itachi?
That's coming from Jay's Lick Twisted.
Yeah.
Minato versus
Yeah, I
Itachi.
couldn't
Surfbone, what do you think about that one?
All right. I guess I'm answering this question then. The big problem is just that Itachi's like Genjutsu is just way too powerful, and his reaction time in which he puts off his Genjutsu is incredibly insane, as well as the fact
He's
that
faster than Minato.
and it doesn't help that a lot of the people that usually are like, well, does he use Genjutsu at the start of the fight? It's like the one character that does every time, like starts off the fight with Genjutsu.
He'll talk. He was
He's
talking to those
Genjutsu the
Anbu that like
character.
chased the Anbu that like, chased him after the massacre. He talked to them. He's like, "Yeah, I Genjutsu'd you like 6 years ago," and they're like, "What? We've been on our Genjutsu this whole fucking time." It's like, "Yeah, oh, you did, bro. Sorry." So yeah, he uses it before the fight even begins. He was like plotting 6 years ahead. So yeah, he'll definitely use Genjutsu in character. I don't think anyone can deny that Tsukiyome one-shots if at any point he just looks at Minato. The question is how fast is Minato? You can scale him to KCM1 Naruto. You know who fought KCM1 Naruto? You're not going to believe it. Itachi did. And he fought Killer Bee too. And he fought Nagato.
I mean,
and he did well against all of them. So, yeah,
Even if they did get a protracted fight, what's he gonna do against like a ribcage Susanoo?
yeah,
Like nothing. Like,
he has no AP to
he's not doing
damage.
anything.
What does he do against the Yadamir, bro? If the Yadamir comes out, gets all of his attacks reflected back on him. Fantastic. What happens if the Totsuka blade pierces him? He gets one shot. What happens if he points at him with his finger Genjutsu? He one shots him. So, what do you really say about Minato that gives him a win condition? He's outgunned in every sense. He's not even physically superior to Itachi, so he just can't win that fight. There's no winning there for him. I'll get the next one. Is Boruto better than JJK? Probably not. No, I haven't read it yet, but I've read a lot of JJK, and from the things I've seen about Boruto, there are some hype moments, and I do like some characters, and I like some themes that they got going on. But no, I think JJK is probably better.
Yeah.
I'll have to read it to get a complete opinion, but go ahead.
As someone who's been reading Boruto out of morbid curiosity, I think Boruto is an example as to why you don't want to do monthly shonen. Because it really wants to be weekly really bad, and you can tell based on how the chapter is structured, but it's once a month, and because of that, you can't do a training chapter. You just can't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a quote from the mangaka where he says that technically there's more content in the monthly chapters because in weekly you have to build up too, right? Like to the next chapter or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to structure it differently. But I feel like weekly you can pull off stuff even if it's in less pages that you can't in a monthly chapter.
Yeah, I could see that. And you'll just get more training and stuff like that, more arcs like that and everything. That question came from Saber EBW. Thank you for the membership, Saber. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, so probably not, but maybe. We'll have to see. I'll have to finish it first. Then we got another question from Noodles YouTuber, and he asks, is Kakuzu universal? Yes, he is. So,
of course.
Chikamaru directly states that Kakuzu defies logic, and he's beyond logic and transcends logic. So
is he beyond
can't
common
deny.
sense?
Yeah, he literally just says beyond math and logic, bro.
Oh,
it's like
shit.
verbatim what he says.
He's
so
above math. Oh
yeah,
no.
Oh no.
Because you gotta those number 1 and 2
problems later.
The numbers 1 and 2 are gonna be afraid of Kakuzu, bro. They're just real life entities. They're just like, man, I'm that Kakuzu guy. He got that durability. I don't know if I can hurt him at all.
He got that dog in him.
He got that dog in him.
All right, Hashi, you can have the last question. Hashi? Yes, he died.
Oh no. Well, we got this one from Hashi on Discord called, and he said, "How big is the One Piece planet?" Very big.
It's pretty damn big, bro. It's pretty big. It's big. Super fucking big.
It'd be big enough to where Whitebeard would absolutely body Hashirama in one punch. So there's your answer, I guess.
That's how big it is.
Yep.
It's not solar system in size. It's probably not even star level. So, but yeah.
I doubt it's star level. Like, I really doubt it.
Yeah.
I think that vaguely bigger than Earth right now is like the best argument. Like, it is very like you can do some math. There's like a calc you can do with a globe that gets it a little bit bigger than Earth. But like Jupiter sized, like I'm not. No.
Yeah. Do you want to
maybe as we get?
Do you want to get?
Maybe if we get like the space arc.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
Maybe
until then, no.
Crazy.
I was just gonna say, Hashi, if you want to get into it, because I think we kind of mentioned it in the previous One Piece not One Piece episode, the previous podcast episode, that one of the big arguments for why the One Piece planet is like around like star level ranges is because of the whole Kuma feat. If you want to get into why that's not a good argument for it.
Yeah, it's because the way it's described by, I believe it's Sentomaru, is that it takes you that long no matter where you go.
Yeah.
So that implies that it's like special travel. It's not like he hits you and then like you're going so fast, but because the planet's so big, no, it's that it's just this like it's kind of like how Amaterasu.
Yeah.
Well, presumably, you slow down towards the end. It's shown with Luffy, but
okay.
It stated like you travel. I think it's for 3 days and 3 nights, which is a very like symbolic way of saying it, right?
Yeah.
But I just think it always sends you that far, and I think we'll see more of it as we see more of Kuma's Devil Fruit in the current arc. Is that there's special properties to it?
Yeah, and one of the things that that we end up finding out, Hashi, I believe, was the ones that are stated to be like Kuma's like light speed attacks weren't even the ones that he hit the Straw Hats with, that were stated to like send you away at 3 days and 3 nights. That wasn't the one. So that statement doesn't even like work for like gauging the One Piece planet size.
Yeah, I just think I think One Piece fans are kind of because One
Trash.
Piece hasn't had it. Yeah, well that, but I think One Piece fans are kind of mad. Like, even though it's not canon, Bleach has Hellverse, and it's like, oh well, it's definitely a multiverse now, guys. And Naruto, the Otsutsuki are high key from other universes, and that's really cool. But One Piece is still like, they're not even at their war arc yet. Where we're like in all the other big three, we get all the cosmic stuff.
Yep.
So
we'll have to see how strong they end up getting by the end of the series. But right now they're just planetary. So I mean, maybe they'll get stronger later, but perhaps not. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for this episode. You have anything else you guys want to talk about? Any other topics? Any questions?
I mean, that's pretty much it. There was a whole other topic that we planned to get into, but we'll probably save it for the next episode. Probably it was
Perfect.
regarding
We're running out of time here, so.
Yep.
yeah,
just
I
so
agree.
just so you guys know, we were hoping to get into this episode. We're probably gonna change to the next episode over on Noodles' channel is why Kagurabachi is a more interesting series right now than Demon Slayer is. Funny enough.
Yeah.
But
we'll talk about that on the next episode. Episode 3.
Episode 3. Again, we're going to be having all the odd number episodes be going on to the Noodle channel. So if you guys want to be like seeing that episode come out, make sure to head over to his channel and we'll be having all the even ones on this episode. But other than that, thank you all for tuning in. Take it easy. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.